Heather was reborn and returned to the 1980s. She intentionally led a few female coworkers from her shift to visit her new home. Unexpectedly, she caught her fiancé and his elusive first love, Chloe, with their clothes disheveled, tumbling on the brand new bed. To quiet the gossip, her fiancé, who came from a prestigious family, married the temp worker, Chloe. The new house and the original wedding were all handed over to the new bride. Chloe had even gloated to Heather, showing off the title of Mrs. Sterling, the social status, the wealthy life. In this lifetime, they are all mine. Heather, you've lost to me in both lifetimes. How pathetic. It turned out that Chloe had also been reborn, but so what? Heather had already been called Mrs. Sterling for over 15 years in her past life. Now, she just wanted to live truly for herself. Caught your fiancé cheating and got reborn? Time to flip the script. Watch our girl drop the dead weight, expose the lies, and take her power back. Let's get into it. On the day Heather returned, she stood bewildered at the gate of the Millwood factory. She watched the stream of workers getting off their shift, a bustling and noisy crowd coming and going. The continuous ringing of bicycle bells drifted like a light breeze across the densely packed sea of people. The factory's PA system was announcing the time. It is now exactly 12 noon. Let's all prepare well for the upcoming 4th of July. Heather pinched her own arm. She hissed at the sharp pain, proving that all of this was real. Her old middle school classmate and best friend, Lauren, walked up to her. Heather, let's go. The cafeteria is definitely packed by now. Heather suddenly grabbed her hand tightly. Lauren, have Carter and I gone to get our marriage license yet? The young Lauren was stunned and confused. Aren't you two scheduled to go to the clerk's office tomorrow? I even swapped shifts with you. God had set Heather back exactly one day before she and her fiancé, Carter Sterling, were supposed to get their marriage license on September 20th. How could she ever forget that date? Heather hurriedly said to Lauren, Wait, my aunt from upstate sent me some dried snacks. I want to give them to you. Lauren, being the one who understood Heather best, immediately voiced her grievance on Heather's behalf. After how your aunt upstate used to treat you, why is she suddenly acting so nice now? It's obviously just because she sees you're about to marry a rich man. A strong female voice rang out from behind them. Heather, we're all on the same shift. Why are you playing favorites? They turned around to see Brenda, along with several other female coworkers from their shift. Lauren clicked her tongue and was about to speak up for Heather, but Heather pulled her back. Then let's all go together. There are still some pastries at the new house. I'll give a little to everyone, Heather said. In her past life, Brenda had been her sworn enemy, fighting with her for the top spot on the production line for 3 consecutive years. Brenda had a hot-tempered and blunt personality, and they had never gotten along. Now, her words were even more caustic. I heard Carter Sterling already bought all 4 of the big-ticket household appliances. People in the factory who have connections don't have the coupons, and those with coupons don't have the connections. Thanks to Heather's good luck this time, we'll finally get to broaden our horizons. In just a little while, Heather would make sure their eyes were opened wide, indeed. At 12:15 p.m., right at lunchtime, every apartment in the staff housing was bustling. Laughter and chatter filled the air, along with the savory aroma of lunch being cooked everywhere. As soon as Heather unlocked the door to the apartment, she heard noises echoing from inside. Her hand holding the key trembled so much she almost dropped it. Lauren heard it too, a look of shock washing over her face. Brenda, who was quite tall, heard the commotion and assumed there was a burglar. With one big step, she hoisted herself up to the windowsill and peered inside. Her face instantly flushed beet red as she yelled, "You shameless pigs!" There was the sound of a chair being knocked over from within, and Heather immediately pushed the door open and rushed in. Carter quickly yanked his pants up to his waist. He was wearing nothing but a torn tank top, his hair a messy bird's nest, and his eyes darting away in guilt. As for Chloe, her blouse was completely unbuttoned. She tried to button it back up, but her hands were trembling too violently to manage it. The glaringly white skin still clearly showed the marks of fingerprints. In such a small, narrow single room, whatever should be seen and whatever shouldn't be seen were all in plain sight. Even though Heather had prepared herself mentally, she still leaned against the door, speechless for a long time. Seeing Heather, Carter hurriedly stepped forward. "Heather, it's not what you think." Chloe screamed incessantly in terror. Carter, who was halfway toward Heather, stopped in his tracks, turned around, and hastily pulled the mosquito net over Chloe's head. Lauren grabbed the thermos from the corner of the room, popped the lid, and splashed the scalding water straight at Carter and Chloe. You shameless pigs, you bastards. Curses and agonizing screams echoed through the room. A few female coworkers who had tagged along panicked, covering their faces as they ran away. Brenda was so furious that she started yelling at the top of her lungs. Quick, go call security and the guys. Heather's new house is being robbed by a pair of thieves. Hearing that something had happened to Heather, the security office immediately reported it to the supervisor. And even the deputy director of the factory rushed over, only to unexpectedly witness this scene. Lauren immediately demanded that security arrest them all on the spot. Aren't they thieves? Stealing someone's man and having an illicit affair? Isn't that also stealing? The deputy director furrowed his brows and scolded her sternly. You're an unmarried young woman. Why are you getting involved in this messy business? Unexpectedly, the first person to speak up was Brenda. She pointed a finger, like a burning twig, straight at Carter's face. Director, you can't just let this slide, just because Carter is an executive, transferred from headquarters. This is Heather's new house. These two, they were supposed to get their marriage license tomorrow, and the 4th of July is their wedding day. All eyes turned to Heather, whose face was completely drained of color, and to Carter, who remained dead silent. Carter suddenly turned his head to glare at Heather, his eyes full of anger. His hands clenched tightly. Heather shook her head, a lump forming in her throat. No more marriage license. The wedding is canceled too. And I don't want this house either. After saying that, she turned around to leave. Carter stepped forward quickly and pulled her back. It looked as though he was apologizing and trying to make her stay, but in reality, he leaned close to her ear, his voice cold and hard. Heather, don't be so petty. Whether we get married or not isn't important, but you absolutely must cooperate with me to cover this up. Otherwise, how is Chloe supposed to live with herself after this? Heather stared at him with wide eyes. He was so used to this, so used to looking down on her, that he didn't even offer a token apology. All he had on his mind was how his precious first love would survive. But hadn't Heather deliberately brought people here just to make a scene? She took a deep breath, pretending to be deeply hurt and naive. You want me to help you cover it up? Could it be that you did something wrong and this woman is blackmailing you, so you have to sacrifice yourself to protect her? Did he really think she would be as submissive and weak as she was in her past life, helping him smooth everything over? In that case, she wanted to see even more who Carter would choose between her and Chloe. Carter looked at her in absolute disbelief, while everyone around them stood stunned. The deputy director secretly gave Carter a warning look. Carter, you must think carefully before you speak. If there's some hidden reason behind this, the factory might be able to plead for leniency. Chloe, wrapped tightly in the blanket, burst into tears and begged, Carter, please save me. Carter glared at Heather with intense hatred. After hesitating for a long time, he finally gritted his teeth and spat out, I was drunk. I don't know how she ended up climbing into my bed. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Everyone was dead silent at those words, including Chloe, his beloved first love. Brenda, who was always straightforward, immediately blew up. Director, tell me this. Does Carter have legs but doesn't know how to run? She then pointed at Chloe, who was cowering on the bed. And her? Was she bitten by a wild animal to end up looking like that? Doesn't she know how to scream? Chloe's hair was a messy bird's nest. She covered her face, but she couldn't hide her pale complexion, and her lips were swollen. Carter's eyes were filled with pity at this moment, but in order to protect himself, he had to turn his face away. He grabbed Heather's hand again, pretending to swear solemnly, Heather, believe me, I was so drunk I really don't know what happened. But his eyes harbored a malicious hatred that Heather could see clear as day. Right after that, she burst into tears, covering her face as she screamed. Carter Sterling, can you at least keep a little bit of your dignity? No one here is blind, and no one is stupid. No matter how much she forced you, if you weren't willing, how could she have gotten into the new house? How could she have climbed into the wedding bed? Carter looked up in panic, only to be met with the contemptuous and knowing stares of everyone present. That was right. Heather didn't just want to expose Chloe, she wanted to tear off his mask as well. In her past life, because she had helped him cover everything up, he pinned all the blame on her after they got married. Sometimes it was an endless cold war, sometimes he would mock her endlessly in front of outsiders. And sometimes he refused to come home or deliberately let her find out that he was still seeing Chloe. In this life, she absolutely would not endure it anymore. Heather? Don't lie to me. Heather couldn't hold back her loud, uncontrollable sobs. Lauren immediately grabbed a broom, rushed over, and started hitting Carter. Let go of Heather. Brenda unexpectedly hurried to support Heather, pulling her behind her. Carter Sterling, you're fooling around with another young woman before you're even married, and right in your fiancé's new house. The security office might not dare to deal with you, but do you think this is over? My brother works at the police station, and he definitely won't let scum like you off the hook. The deputy director also grew cautious and immediately ordered the security guards to take Carter and Chloe away first. Amidst all the stares fixed on them, Chloe threw herself into Carter's arms like a moth to a flame. Carter, didn't you never want this marriage in the first place? Isn't it just because your father wanted to repay the kindness of his old comrade in arms that he forced you to marry Heather? Why do you have to be the tool for your parents to make amends? We clearly love each other, so why are people calling it an illicit affair? Chloe pressed herself against Carter, crying as she wrapped around him like a vine on a tree. I don't blame you for wanting to protect your reputation, but I really don't want you to be tricked by Heather. She has her own ulterior motives for wanting to marry you. If she genuinely cared about you, why would she drag a whole crowd of people here to catch us red-handed? The air suddenly fell dead silent. Everyone looked at each other, their expressions varying. Carter held Chloe tightly in his arms and turned to look at Heather. His eyes, as if just awakened to the truth, glared at her with intense resentment. Heather was so furious she felt dizzy, stuttering as she scolded them. You have no shame, and now you're blaming me for showing up at the perfect time? The deputy director cursed under his breath, but on the surface, he had to soften his tone to advise, Carter, in front of so many people like this, it's just too humiliating. Carter's face, originally full of indignation, now shifted to a look of determination and clarity. He looked at Heather, enunciating every word clearly. No one is going anywhere. Whether it was a desire to rebel against his father's orders, or for the sake of his own pride and personal honor, in that moment, Carter's heart had entirely tilted toward Chloe. I said, Chloe doesn't need to go anywhere. I was the one who applied for this apartment. I'm not returning the new house, and the wedding is still on. The one I want to marry is Chloe. Almost everyone was stunned upon hearing those words. Heather furrowed her brows tightly, but in a hidden corner where no one else could see, she noticed Chloe looking at her with a satisfied, mocking smile. In their past life, Chloe had been like a panicked little rabbit. Yet at this moment, Chloe's eyes were complicated, filled with a jealousy and envy so intense that Heather couldn't even fathom it. Lauren took Heather back to her place, so she could calm down. Heather, how do those two cheating scumbags still have the nerve to turn around and frame you? The joy of being reborn, the feeling of having cut ties with Carter, coupled with the humiliating scene just now, witnessing their shameless and ironic infidelity with her own eyes, made Heather's mind a tangled mess. She could only slowly recall her fading memories bit by bit. In her previous life, her parents had passed away early, and she had to live with her aunt and uncle. They spent all of her father's pension, then beat and scolded her relentlessly, treating her like an unpaid servant in the house. It was Uncle Sterling, her father's old comrade in arms, who upon returning to his hometown after achieving success, remembered how her father had saved his life during a mission. Thus, he sought out the orphaned daughter of his fallen comrade. Not only did he bring her to the city for her education, but after she graduated from vocational school, he also arranged for her to work in a state-owned factory, instantly securing her city residency. Everything she had was granted by Uncle Sterling. Therefore, when he expressed his wish for her to marry Carter, she did not refuse. It wasn't just to repay his kindness, but also because Carter's outstanding appearance and superior education had long made her admire him. After establishing their relationship, she put all her effort into studying and working hard, hoping to share his interests and find common ground. But he was always cold, cutting her off or just giving a faint, dismissive smile. It wasn't until the day before they were supposed to get their marriage license, when she returned to the new house to grab some things, that she accidentally overheard the affectionate laughter of Carter and Chloe inside. She stood there stunned, her mind completely blank. It was painfully clear that Carter was betraying her. She should have screamed loudly so everyone would condemn him. But what about Uncle Sterling? What about the Sterling family's reputation? Even if she didn't consider Uncle Sterling, if it was exposed that Carter was having an illicit affair with another young woman, leading to his arrest and dismissal, it would mean she had deeply offended the Sterling family and lost her only pillar of support. She was an orphaned girl. Was she supposed to return to her hometown and continue being bullied and tormented by her aunt and uncle? She told herself to endure it for a bit, and everything would pass. After they got married, he told her that as a member of the Sterling family, she needed to quit her job and move to New York, letting Chloe take over her permanent factory position. When she was in the hospital giving birth, he blatantly brought Chloe to live in their New York home. Even though they lived far apart, every year Carter would still make time to travel from New York to Albany to visit Chloe. In her old age, she was sent to a nursing home with no one to ask after her or visit her. Yet, on her phone, she watched her own children organize a belated wedding for Carter and Chloe. In the video, the two of them, with their snow-white hair, kissed in front of everyone, receiving thunderous applause. Obviously, after Uncle Sterling passed away, he could have easily divorced her and married Chloe. But why did he let Chloe raise her children, making her kids call a woman with no proper status mother? She had endured her whole life, and this was the end result. In the nursing home, she had completely let go of her will to live. After falling asleep one night, she simply never woke up again. "Ah, your fingernails are bleeding." Lauren grabbed her hand. Heather looked up and asked her, "The wedding is still happening, but the bride has changed. How will Uncle Sterling look at me after this?" Lauren couldn't answer. She knew the dynamic between Heather and the Sterling family. But Uncle Sterling's reaction wouldn't fall outside of two possibilities. Either he would side with Carter and be disappointed in her, or he would oppose the wedding and take Carter back to New York. Either way, Uncle Sterling would no longer have any reason to continue helping her. Heather understood that she had chosen a path far more arduous and risky than in her past life. But she had already spent her entire previous lifetime repaying that debt of gratitude. Debt of gratitude to Uncle Sterling. In this life, she had to live true to herself. Just then, Lauren's mother knocked on the door from outside. "Lauren, are you home, sweetie?" "What's wrong, Mom?" "I'm home," Lauren replied. "I heard Carter Sterling and a temp worker were doing filthy things in the bridal house, and you even threw boiling water on them." Lauren's mother pushed the door open as she spoke, and upon seeing Heather sitting on the bed, she immediately became flustered. "Oh, Heather, you're here too." The scandal between Carter and Chloe spread as fast as a wildfire. In just one afternoon, it had circulated throughout the entire factory. To the simple and conservative people of the 1980s, this was a truly shocking event. To be caught red-handed and still have it end like that, how could people not gossip about it? Then, Lauren's mother brought up something Heather hadn't anticipated at all. "Heather, your aunt and uncle are on their way to the city to attend the wedding. What are you going to do now?" In her past life, she had grown old and frail, so how could she remember her aunt and uncle, who had passed away a long time ago? Lauren began to worry. If your aunt and uncle see that you've been dumped by the Sterling family, they'll definitely want to drag you back upstate. Heather still had scars on her arms from the beatings all those years ago. A lifetime of endurance had only earned her increasingly cruel abuse. She gritted her teeth, resolute. "It wasn't my fault. The factory has no reason to fire me, and even if they don't want me anymore, I still have my hands and feet. I can go be a street vendor. I am absolutely not going back upstate with them." The next morning, Heather went back to work. It had been over 15 years since she had touched the machinery. The moment her hands made contact with it, a surge of emotion welled up inside her, a mix of nervousness and excitement. However, she had long forgotten the techniques and procedures. She was as clumsy as a beginner, standing to the side and watching Lauren operate the machines. Lauren worked neatly and decisively, her movements quick and agile. In just a short while, she had completed a full run. Brenda, wearing a hard hat with both hands shoved in her pockets, stood behind them. "Heather, what's wrong with you today? Why are you moving as slow as a turtle?" Heather didn't answer. Lauren glared at Brenda. "Some people will do absolutely anything just to snatch first place." Brenda furrowed her brows. "What nonsense are you spouting?" "Who's spouting nonsense? What happened yesterday noon, the whole factory knew by evening. Today, the entire city is probably gossiping about it." Brenda refused to back down. "How could I possibly do something like that?" Lauren wanted to say more, but Heather gently shook her head and spoke up politely. "You can clearly see my condition today. I'll probably be slowing down the progress for a while, but I'll try my best not to drag it out. I hope everyone can be understanding." Brenda asked in surprise. "Heather, who are you taking a jab at? Do you think I'm the kind of person who would play dirty tricks behind your back just to win first place?" Heather calmly looked straight at the rival who had been her sworn enemy in her past life. Brenda craned her neck and said loudly, I just came to see how you're doing. Has there ever been a girl in our group who was about to get married and had to suffer that kind of humiliation? With that, she suddenly pulled out a handful of candies and shoved them into Heather's hands. Take it. I want to compete with you fair and square, not by relying on backdoor connections or playing dirty tricks. After saying that, she turned around and ran off quickly. Lauren was stunned. White creamy milk candies? Oh my gosh, those have always been a luxury item. At that moment, Heather suddenly understood why she had always fondly remembered these days as a factory worker. It wasn't just because she was young then, but also because her worth was still recognized by others. It was the respect and trust that she had earned with her own two hands. After getting off her shift, Heather was still deeply immersed in recalling every detail of the day's work. Unexpectedly, her aunt and uncle suddenly appeared right in front of her. The moment they met, her uncle tightly gripped her wrist as if afraid she would run away. Heather, come with us quickly. Apologize to Carter. You can't let him dump you. Her aunt exerted even more force, her fingernails digging deep into the back of Heather's hand. You've already made it into the city. How can you not even hold on to a man? A gust of wind rushed past her ear as her aunt swung a hand and slapped Heather right across the face, her mouth cursing non-stop, even dragging Heather's late parents into her insulting tirade. A surging anger welled up in her heart. She screamed, "Shut up! You have no right to mention my parents. If my parents were still alive, even just one of them, would you two dare to treat me like this?" When her aunt was beating and scolding her, her uncle hadn't said a word. Only now did he seem to wake up. Heather, a person shouldn't be ungrateful. We raised you. Why can't we make decisions for you? On the main road within the factory grounds, passers-by stopped to whisper and gossip. At first, they thought it was parents disciplining their child, but it turned out to just be relatives. Even if they were her parents, they can't just beat someone in the middle of the street. Who are you people? Call security, quick. They might be human traffickers. Seeing the public opinion turning against them, her aunt immediately plopped down on the ground and started wailing loudly. Oh my God! I worked so hard to raise this niece of mine, and now she won't even listen to me. Heather's cold gaze swept over her aunt, who was throwing a tantrum, and then looked straight at her uncle, who at least seemed a bit more reasonable when he spoke. Uncle, you two came here today to force me to cut all family ties with you, didn't you? Her uncle's eyes darted around continuously, his hands and feet moving awkwardly as he waved her off. What are you saying? We're doing this because we care about you. How is that forcing you? She pulled up her sleeves and pant legs to reveal the scars from the past beatings. Is this what you two call caring about me? Her uncle hurriedly tried to stop her. Don't let people see. Don't let anyone see. Heather, even if you're mad at us, you shouldn't expose this in front of so many people. She raised her voice. Just now, in front of a crowd, you hit me as you pleased. When my parents passed away, I was just a little kid. I remember clearly how you treated me back upstate. I know you two are ruthless and fear nothing in heaven or earth, but do you think you'll never grow old or die? Even if you fear nothing, what about my younger cousins? Go ahead, keep making a scene. If I lose my job, they can forget about ever coming to the city. Her uncle looked at her in horror. Even her aunt, sitting on the ground wailing, forgot to keep up her act. Even the most vulgar people who feared no gods would still fear bringing disaster upon their children. They always assumed that with just one word from the Sterling family, her younger cousins would get to attend vocational school and enter a state-owned factory just like her. They sucked her dry, yet acted like masters ordering a slave around. On what grounds? The security guards quickly arrived on the scene. Who are you people? Who allowed you to hit someone inside the factory grounds? Her uncle looked at her, showing a subservient posture for the first time in his life. Heather, you're about to marry into the Sterling family in New York. Our whole family is counting on you. Saying that, he slapped himself in the face a few times. That's New York. Your aunt and I haven't even been to the city twice in our whole lives. This city is so great. You can't cut off your cousin's futures. It was true that having parents to protect you made being a child truly blissful. It was just a pity she didn't have that. Therefore, she absolutely couldn't let these fake, vicious people continue to use moral blackmail to control her. Who I marry, or don't marry, is not a ladder for you to cling to and climb up on. If this reaches the police, I can absolutely sue you for intentional assault. Once someone has a criminal record, let alone getting into a factory, no one anywhere will hire them. Uncle, you're backing me into a corner. Do you want to ruin the whole family? Her aunt and uncle were escorted out of the factory grounds by the security guards, their faces full of reluctance and unwillingness. The surrounding crowd also gradually dispersed. Heather reached up to touch her still red and swollen cheek, finally breathing a sigh of relief. Unexpectedly, she saw Carter appear, his face full of mockery and sarcasm. "That was a nice play. I thought it would get to the part where your aunt and uncle drag you in front of me and beg me not to dump you." Heather pursed her lips tightly. "What are you doing here?" Carter had imagined a whole theatrical production in his head. "With your aunt and uncle making such a fuss, wouldn't someone notify me to come be the hero saving the damsel in distress? Isn't it just like yesterday? Also a scene you painstakingly arranged, right? The wound on your face, you probably deliberately had them hit you hard so I would see it, feel bad, and turn around to marry you, right?" Heather bent down, picked up a rock from the ground, and threw it straight at Carter's head. "Right, it's all my acting. My parents dying was my acting. Being abused by my aunt and uncle was also my acting. Even you and Chloe rolling around in the new house was arranged by me so you two could put on a show. Are you satisfied now?" Carter dodged the rock, his face turning pale. Heather had never spoken so bluntly to him before. "It's good that you admit it. This 4th of July, my parents are only hosting my wedding with Chloe." "Heather, stop dreaming." Heather let out a mocking laugh. "Other than being Uncle Sterling's son, what is there about you that's worth respecting?" Carter raised his eyebrows arrogantly, forcing a smile, though his voice brimmed with smugness. "I am the youngest son of the Sterling family, a prestigious household with solid backing. What about you, Heather? You're just an orphan, who only got to go to school and have a job thanks to my dad. Food, clothes, everything you have today, which of it wasn't handed out by my family? By marrying me, wouldn't you be rising from the ashes to become a phoenix? Can you really bear to let go? You've taken too much from the Sterling family. Just drop it and stop playing the victim, all right?" Earlier, Heather had taken a stinging slap from her aunt, but now Carter's words felt like 10 harsh slaps straight across her face. The crowd that had just dispersed heard the commotion and quickly gathered around them again. An acquaintance hurriedly pulled Carter's arm, advising him in a low voice, "Carter, let's go. Don't stand here arguing with her anymore." But Carter refused, arrogantly shouting out loud, "Heather, if you truly want to win me back, then get down on your knees and bow to me right here in front of everyone. Can you do that?" Hearing this, the acquaintance was startled. "Carter, you're going too far." Carter shrugged. "Our Sterling family has given her so many things she couldn't repay them in a lifetime. What's the big deal about kneeling once?" Heather stared fixedly at Carter, who was acting utterly arrogant and smug right in front of her. He wanted to salvage the little bit of pride he had lost yesterday by trampling all over her dignity today. He was a completely shameless playboy to the very core. In her past life, she didn't know how many pairs of rose-tinted glasses she must have been wearing to ever think a man like him was worth entrusting her entire life to. By now, the crowd had formed a tight circle with no gaps left. Under Carter's instigation, everyone's eyes were fixed on Heather, as if waiting for the moment she would drop to her knees and beg. She felt like someone walking all alone through a fierce storm. Her mind was flooded with the agonizing memories of her previous life, culminating in the image of her white hair and her very last breath. On the hospital bed, the wedding march was still playing on the phone. Carter and Chloe, old and gray by then, still shamelessly kissed in front of everyone. The heart monitor beeped coldly, the only sound left in the room. The kindness the Sterling family had shown her, along with Carter and Chloe's filthy affair, she had already paid the price and tolerated them for an entire lifetime. At that moment, Carter turned his head, chatting with his acquaintance, while waiting for her to weakly fall to her knees. Smack! Heather raised her hand and slapped him right across the face. The crowd immediately backed away, forming a circle. Carter reacted instantly, furiously raising his hand to slap her back, but Lauren swung her broom, knocking his hand away. Right after that came a straight kick from behind by Brenda, sending him rolling to the side. "Carter Sterling, you bastard! There are no slaves in this country. Who are you trying to make kneel?" Heather couldn't hold back anymore and burst into loud sobs. Carter, who was furious, suddenly froze. Heather gathered all the pent-up grievances from her 2 lifetimes and poured them out into words. "Carter, I don't deny the kindness Uncle Sterling has shown me. I have to say he is the person who has treated me the best, second only to my parents. But if, as you say, his help was just charity, then that's nothing but an insult to Uncle Sterling's character and a smear on your whole family's goodwill. I am human. I will forever remember his kindness, but I will also clearly remember the insults and slander you've thrown at me today. Not marrying you is the best decision of my life. Not suing you for breaking off the engagement and for your betrayal is the last bit of respect I have for the Sterling family. But you've destroyed everything I tried to preserve. Carter, don't think that just because you marry Chloe, everything will be smoothed over. Marriage applications have to be reported to the higher-ups step by step. If I decide to press charges, not only will you and Chloe be unable to get married, but you'll also be slapped with moral violation charges, enough to make both of you suffer. Carter went from being stunned to horrified. Heather, are you planning to take revenge on me? Have you forgotten my dad? How dare you? Heather breathed heavily, her chest heaving. You're the one who broke the engagement, had an affair, and then smeared my name bit by bit. Did you think that just because I'm an orphan, out of pride and gratitude, I would continue to stay silent and swallow the humiliation? Yes, some people might want to become a phoenix, but others just want to be decent human beings. Because of you, I've endured too much criticism, and now I have to thank you by bowing down. In the 1980s, a girl whose engagement was broken off would naturally be gossiped about, but there were still reasonable people in the crowd. Playing the victim, I think Heather is the one who's truly pitiful. So what if she has no parents? Does the Sterling family have the right to trample all over her? Heather slowly looked around at the faces, some familiar, some strangers. Lauren lunged forward and hugged her tightly. Brenda couldn't hold back and yelled loudly, Carter Sterling, who the hell gave birth to you? Who raised a bastard like you? Carter knew he was in the wrong and began to notice the hostile glares from the crowd, but he still stubbornly spat out bitter words. Heather, you're really insidious. How come I never noticed you had such skills before, even managing to drag so many people over to your side? The crowd immediately swarmed around him. Drag who? After hearing your story, anyone who could praise you must be out of their mind. How could the Sterling family produce such a pig-headed idiot? Just the deputy director appeared outside the crowd and yelled, Carter Sterling, get out here right now. Seeing someone intervening, the crowd finally dispersed. The deputy director pulled Carter to the side and scolded him in a low voice. Stop causing trouble. And don't let that little girl come looking for me anymore. Carter's clothes had been wrinkled from the shoving, and his shoes had been stepped on several times. He ached all over. Seeing the lights still on in the new house, a hint of warmth and longing rose in his heart. Fortunately, Chloe had been quick-witted today and managed to ask the deputy director for help, getting him out of trouble. But as soon as he pushed the door open and walked in, Carter saw Chloe with her back to him, happily humming a tune while mixing and matching outfits from a pile of women's clothes spread all over the bed. The 4 big-ticket wedding items in the house, originally covered with red cloth, had all been unpacked, their boxes scattered all over the floor. Chloe admired her own face in the mirror, her brows brimming with smugness and vanity. Heather, everything of yours finally belongs to me now. Carter walked in. The noise he made startled Chloe, making her jump. Don't hit me, she subconsciously dodged. Carter sighed. It's me. Chloe instantly looked overjoyed, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. Carter, you're back. I thought it was Heather or my stepdad. Carter knew Chloe's situation very well. Her biological father had died early, and her mother had remarried a worker at the factory. After her mother passed away, her stepfather wanted to remarry multiple times, but whenever people found out he still had a stepdaughter, Chloe, at home, everyone shook their heads and refused. Her stepfather had tried to kick her out many times. It was only thanks to the help of relatives that she had managed to get a job as a temp worker. Chloe was indeed pitiful, but she was also truly beautiful. Whenever he brought her out, everyone would marvel at her, and when she was with him, she was as obedient as a kitten, unlike Heather, who was always dry and rigid, only knowing how to bury her head in her work and studies. Marrying Heather was no different from marrying a man. Wait, why are you bringing up Heather? Carter grew irritated, recalling the scene today where Heather had humiliated him. He pointed at the pile of clothes on the bed. These things were tailored by my mom and sisters according to Heather's measurements. Why are you touching them? Do they even fit? Chloe slowly took off her wool cardigan, revealing a tight-fitting dress. Even though it was a bit snug, it further accentuated her full, curvy figure. She pressed herself against him, her eyes glistening as if she were about to cry. Carter, I know you're upset today. It's because Heather put on a pitiful act and humiliated you, right? Thinking of Heather's scolding, Carter's anger surged again. Exactly. She really took a mile when given an inch, daring to give me a dressing down. She even said she'd report me for moral violations. See? Isn't it just because she's bitter that she's deliberately taking revenge? Women really are all sweet talk with daggers in their hearts. She's an orphan. Could she even survive without me? Just wait and see how I deal with her. Hearing this, Chloe felt uneasy. Heather had been so obedient before, yet now she dared to scold him and threaten to report him. Could it be that catching them in the new house that day wasn't a coincidence? Could it be that she had also been reborn? No, she had to lock Carter down first. Chloe immediately put on a soft, gentle demeanor. Carter, let's not think about those unhappy things anymore. But what if your parents don't like me? Carter let out a scoffing laugh. What's done is done. What do you think they can do about it? Chloe smiled charmingly and leaned into his embrace, but a vicious glint flashed in her eyes. Heather, even if you were reborn, I will still snatch away everything that belongs to you. That evening, Heather had dinner at Lauren's house. Brenda tagged along as well. At the dining table, Heather's hand holding the chopsticks wouldn't stop trembling. Lauren comforted her. Heather, you did great today. Your aunt, your uncle, and even Carter were all taught a lesson they'll never forget. It turned out that standing up and flipping the table wasn't as difficult as she had thought. The two massive mountains that had weighed heavily on her in her past life were actually not that hard to face. Suddenly, Brenda dropped a comment, sounding rather unhappy. The quarterly performance review results are about to be announced. You're in first place again, and I'm still second. And yet, I have to act like I'm satisfied. Lauren glared at her. You helped Heather today, so I thought you had turned over a new leaf. Who would have thought you'd still be making snide remarks at her? Brenda put down her chopsticks and looked at Heather seriously. Once every 3 years, the factory selects someone to go to New York for advanced training. The most important criterion is the performance ranking. Since I joined the factory, I was first for 3 consecutive years. But ever since you arrived, that spot has been yours. Later on, I heard people say that you, Heather, have a VIP backing you from New York. Tell me, how could I possibly accept that? Heather asked her in return. Do you think I got first place because I was about to marry Carter? So the factory just went with the flow and gave her first place? Brenda said in a frustrated tone. For the past 3 years, a lot of people thought that way. But this time, with Carter making such a scene, breaking off the engagement and losing so much face, yet the factory's still ranking you first, that proves you truly have the ability. Heather asked back. Brenda, we've worked in the same group for the past 3 years, side by side every day. Don't you clearly understand my abilities? Brenda pouted her lips but then lowered her head and apologized. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been so petty and made assumptions about others. But I'm really not resigned to losing. Heather said seriously. You didn't lose. Even though we are rivals, today you were willing to put aside all our grudges to step up and help me drive Carter away. That proves your character is very noble. These past few days, you're one of the few people who lent me a hand. Brenda, just based on how you treated me today, it's worth it for me to yield all the rewards to you. Brenda was so moved, she was on the verge of tears. Who wants you to yield? We have to compete fair and square, okay? A promise made is a promise kept. In her past life, Heather was the one who married into a New York family, but in this life she wanted to live differently. She would rely on her own abilities to be chosen to go to New York to study and advance her career. Brenda was a very good girl. When their group held the recent quarterly awards ceremony, seeing Heather take first place again, many of the women in the group only clapped half-heartedly, their faces full of suspicion. It was Brenda who clapped first, prompting the whole group to finally clap along. But when they returned to their workstations, everyone was stunned. Heather's workstation had been smashed to pieces, and all her tools were ruined. At the scene, there was also a piece of red cloth pinned up, with words clearly written on it, showing off while pretending to be innocent. It was no different from signing a confession. In this era, there were no surveillance cameras. When the incident occurred, no one was present at the scene. Ruling out everyone who was there, who else could it be but the only person she had a recent conflict with? Chloe? Chloe's meddling this time inadvertently helped Heather solidify her evidence for a formal complaint. It wasn't just Heather. This time, many of the women in the group, and even several other workers who couldn't stand the sight of it, all signed the petition together. Carter, who wasn't originally an official employee of the factory, was disciplined and demoted. As for Chloe, her status as a temp worker was revoked, and she was given a severe reprimand. Chloe acted as if nothing had happened. The very next day, she moved straight out of the female workers' dormitory and into the new house, openly living together with him. She claimed that their marriage license application was under review and that they were having their wedding on the 4th of July. Since she was no longer a factory employee, no one could control her anyway. After we get married, I'll be moving to New York. I don't even care about a temp worker job at this factory. Saying that infuriated countless people. Even the relative who had introduced her to the factory felt so humiliated, they wanted to dig a hole and hide, cursing Chloe as a disaster who disgraced the entire family. Right around that time, Heather was called to the factory office. She thought the petition was being counter-investigated, but unexpectedly, the factory director handed her a transfer order. In her past life, it was only because she married Carter that she was considered family, which resulted in a work transfer order to New York. Now she had even reported him, yet this transfer order still ended up in her hands. Was the director mistaken? The director smiled and explained, "There's no mistake. This is Uncle Sterling's intention." Whether Uncle Sterling wanted to compensate her or simply smooth things over, it was ultimately just to protect Carter. Heather felt she had done nothing to earn it and didn't dare accept this favor. "I really don't want to accept this." "Heather, think it over. Hey, don't run off." As she walked down from the office building, Heather's mind was a tangled mess. Suddenly, Chloe rushed out from out of nowhere and violently shoved her. Heather didn't fall, only stumbling back a few steps. "You bitch, could it be you were also reborn?" Chloe crossed her arms over her chest, her eyes so vicious it was as if she wanted to skin Heather alive. She looked completely different from the calm, tactful exterior, hiding daggers in her smiles like she had in her previous life. "I don't know what you're talking about," Heather replied. Whether Chloe was reborn or not, Heather didn't care. She didn't even want Carter anymore, so why waste her breath on her? Chloe sneered. "Heather, you're really good at acting. In the previous life, you played the role of the gentle, long-suffering wife, making Carter suddenly feel regretful only after you died. And now you're still acting. If you weren't reborn, how did you know to drag people there to catch us cheating right on time? How did you dare to teach Carter a lesson in front of so many people like that?" Heather glanced at the windows of the nearby building. "You guys dared to fool around and do dirty deeds, so I'm not allowed to accidentally catch you?" Chloe gritted her teeth in anger. "Are you still playing dumb? Don't even think about playing hard to get to win Carter back. I came back 2 months ago. Both Carter's body and heart are firmly in my grasp now. The title of Mrs. Sterling, the status, the wealthy life. In this life, they are all mine. Heather, you've lost to me in both lifetimes. How truly pathetic." No wonder she was so strangely calm at the new house that day. With just a few words, she had managed to make a wavering Carter immediately turn around and stand by her side. "Since you're already a loser, give me one more gift," Chloe said. She pulled out a thin razor blade. Quick as lightning, she slashed a line across her own arm. Blood poured out. Then, like a madwoman, she lunged straight at Heather. Heather quickly stepped back until she turned the corner and bumped into someone. It was Brenda and a tall, handsome young man walking beside her. Chloe immediately threw the blade on the ground, her arm covered in blood, and screamed like a victim, "Help me! Heather is trying to kill me!" Right at that moment, Carter hurriedly ran over from afar. "Chloe, what's wrong?" Chloe, tears welling in her eyes, immediately shrank into Carter's embrace, her voice full of weakness. "Carter, you have to protect me. It's Heather. She had a razor blade, said I seduced you, and threatened to slash my face." Carter looked at Heather angrily. "Did you really do this?" Heather raised her eyebrows. "If I were going to hit her, I would do it fair and square in the open. Why would I need to sneakily slash her face? Do you two even know what shame is?" Carter looked at her for a few seconds before saying, "Chloe, could you have misunderstood? Heather isn't the kind of person who would dare do something like that." Chloe was instantly stunned. Heather added a jab, "But the petition reporting you two was definitely written by me." Carter let out a laugh. "So you're not playing the gentle role anymore this time, switching to taking revenge instead?" Chloe's expression became even uglier. Carter had always been hot-tempered, fickle, and self-righteous. This was nothing new to Heather. In the previous life after his affair with Chloe, just like any other lovers, they also argued and threw tantrums. Whenever Chloe annoyed him, Carter would return home and act nice and accommodating to Heather. But then, when he felt family life was too boring, he would go back to coaxing Chloe. It repeated like that for over 15 years. At this moment, seeing Carter trying to act like a righteous gentleman only made Heather feel amused and contemptuous. "What kind of person I am is not important. What's important is that I don't need Carter Sterling anymore. Chloe, anything else you do is just superfluous. Heather turned to look at Carter. You should keep a close eye on her. The wedding day is approaching. If Uncle Sterling saw that you two are about to get married, but already don't trust each other, would he be happy? Carter froze, then immediately retorted, Heather, saying that means you care about me. Or are you using my father's name to lecture me? How disgusting. Chloe immediately put on a pitiful act. It hurts so much. Carter hurriedly coaxed her. Be good, it's just a small cut, don't make a big deal out of it. Brenda, who had been standing in the background the whole time, couldn't help but laugh out loud. If you wanted to slash someone's face, you'd grab a knife to be quick about it. Who would bother using a razor blade? And would the injured person really chase after their attacker so fiercely? Does that even make sense? If you're going to put on a show, at least put some effort into it. Chloe's embarrassment quickly turned into anger. Heather is the one who hurt me. You and Heather are in the same group, so you're definitely covering for her. Hearing this, Brenda got visibly excited. Who doesn't know that Heather and I have always been sworn enemies? In our group, if she isn't number one, then I am. It's fierce competition, got it? Heather is too soft. If it were me, you and that useless dog of a man would have been beaten up right on the spot. Carter blew up. Who are you calling a dog of a man? Brenda didn't back down. I can't just curse her without cursing you too, right? You useless piece of trash. That watch on Chloe's wrist was an engagement gift from the whole group to Heather. She actually has the nerve to parade it around everywhere. Isn't that because you enabled her? And you still dare to run your mouth? From now on, whenever I see you two, spitting on you will be the least I do. You're absolute trash, staining the entire factory's reputation. Getting fired up, she genuinely looked ready to charge forward and give each of them a kick. The tall, handsome young man walking next to Brenda hurriedly held her back. Carter hastily pulled Chloe away, glancing at the watch on her wrist, his eyes unconsciously darting toward Heather a few times. Brandon, don't stop me. I'm gonna bite them to death. Brenda yelled as Carter hurriedly dragged Chloe away. Great cursing, someone shouted. Brenda looked up, only then realizing that behind the dense row of trees, all the windows on the 5th floor of the building behind them were wide open and packed with people watching the drama unfold. Even the factory director was standing by a window, his face dark and gloomy. A cheer erupted from a west-facing office on the 3rd floor. Brenda! Count me in. From now on, whenever I see them, I'll spit on them too. The person who had just held her back was her brother, Brandon. He raised an eyebrow and teased. I told you to be less impulsive. Now the whole factory knows you bite people. Brenda's face turned so red she wanted nothing more than to sink into the ground right then and there. That evening, the deputy director and the security office led a group of people to the new house. Chloe was still trying to finish playing out her drama. We're going to hold our wedding on the 4th of July. Can't you just wait a few more days? I'm also going to file a report. Heather was the one who attacked me with a razor blade. How can you people still be smiling? The deputy director didn't want to waste his breath, and immediately ordered the security guards to take swift action. Chloe instantly leaned against the doorframe and shrieked, No one is allowed to touch me. If you dare touch me, I'll scream that I'm being assaulted. The deputy director almost had to call for female staff members to handle her. Right at that moment, Carter slowly returned from afar, looking completely dazed. As soon as she saw him, Chloe immediately put on an arrogant front, relying on his backing. Carter, you were the one who applied for this house under your name. Why do they have the right to kick us out? The deputy director swept a cold, sharp glare at Chloe, forcing her to finally shut her mouth. Carter, the factory has its regulations. Previously, it was because you and Heather were about to get married. You are a special talent, and Heather is an outstanding cadre, so an exception was made to allocate this house. Now that the bride has changed, and you are also preparing to be transferred at the end of the year, the factory has already made new arrangements for this house. Carter had just come out of the director's office, so he naturally understood the reasons behind this, but Chloe refused to understand. That makes no sense. Carter is a special talent, and he isn't transferring until the end of the year. Why can't we live here now? The deputy director didn't even bother to pay attention to Chloe. He just looked at Carter. A place in the dormitory has already been cleared out for you, and the bed is all set up. Chloe pulled Carter's arm. Hubby, say something. Carter coldly threw her hand off. I agree to the factory's arrangement. I will pack my bags and move out tonight. It's just that there are still many things in the house that can't be moved immediately. The deputy director was very agreeable. No problem. The security office will install a bigger lock and reinforce the windows to ensure not even a fly can get in. Chloe was so furious she stomped her feet. What about me? Since you don't have a job, you can go wherever you please, but you cannot stay here anymore, the deputy director replied. After the deputy director left, Carter began to pack his bags in silence. Carter, why didn't you put in a good word for me? Chloe asked. Carter asked angrily, why did you go and mess with Heather? Chloe choked on her words, then immediately changed her tune, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't. It was her. Even in front of me, you still want to keep acting? Chloe pursed her lips tightly as tears streamed down her face. Carter sighed. I know that in the past, I didn't give you a proper status, which made you suffer a lot of grievances. But now we're about to get married. You've moved into the new house, worn Heather's clothes, and put on her watch. Do you still not think that's enough? Chloe sobbed. Heather set me up. Carter sneered. If you hadn't gone looking for her on your own initiative, how would she have had the chance to set you up? Heather might be rigid and dry, but does she have the guts to harm someone? Even Brenda, who is always competing with her, stood up to defend her. Could it be simply because Heather is kind-hearted? Can't you see that now both of us have a terrible reputation all over the factory? Chloe was mad with rage. While she was hesitating, Carter had already finished packing his bags. Chloe clung to him tightly. Carter, how am I supposed to live if you leave? Why did the new house get taken back? Carter couldn't hold back anymore. Stop talking. The decision to take back the new house was made by my father. That night, having nowhere else to go, Chloe had to brazenly return to her stepfather's house. She bribed her youngest stepsister to sneakily open the door for her to slip in during the middle of the night. Her stepfather thought it was a burglar and was so scared by Chloe that he almost had a heart attack. The whole family immediately erupted into a loud argument, waking up the entire housing complex. Chloe put her hands on her hips and cursed loudly. Do you think I like this pigsty of a house? Just wait until I marry Carter. I'll go back to New York and live in a big mansion. When that time comes, you guys will be the ones sucking up to me. The next morning at work, everyone gathered around gossiping enthusiastically. Everyone was curious about how Carter's parents would react when they saw that their future daughter-in-law was someone like Chloe. In the 1980s, moral standards were still very strict. No one could understand how Chloe could cast aside her shame to such an extent. Actually, the relationship between Chloe and Carter, to put it bluntly, could be summed up in 2 words: stealing and snatching. To Carter, Chloe was the epitome of the saying, a wife isn't as good as a mistress, and a mistress isn't as good as an illicit affair. As for Chloe, Carter was a precious prize that she had to snatch from another woman's hands to feel it was worthwhile. In her previous life, it was precisely because of the Sterling family's abundant wealth, and because Heather acted as a solid rearguard for Carter, that they had the luxury to play that thrilling game of infidelity. It was that very novelty and sense of excitement that kept them endlessly engrossed in it. But once they were married, and bogged down by the daily grind of making ends meet, how much of that thrilling, illicit love would remain? Heather was lost in thought when she was called up to the office by her group leader. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a business card for a hotel in Albany funded by a Hong Kong investor, with Room 1001 written on it. Uncle Sterling asked me to give this to you. They hope you can make a trip there tomorrow. Wasn't tomorrow exactly the 4th of July? In her past life, this was the exact day of her wedding with Carter. She wore a red shirt and black pants, both made from new fabric, which the Sterling family had stayed up all night to finish using a newly purchased sewing machine. Her hair was thick, black, and cut short to her shoulders, making her look neat and refreshed. Yet, when Carter saw her dressed like that, he only coldly scoffed. I suppose you look decent enough. She tried to suppress her sadness and disappointment, still standing behind him. A person who had never known happiness like her truly believed that as long as she had a home, she would have a fulfilling life. But what was the result? She wasn't happy. She had spent her entire life sacrificing herself and acting as a stepping stone for the Sterling family's happiness. Heather stepped into the hotel room where Uncle Sterling was staying. Both the uncle and aunt were present, still radiating that same dignified and imposing aura she remembered. The fact that they were here proved that they really didn't intend to attend Carter's wedding anymore. Uncle Sterling sighed. I already know everything that happened between you two. Heather, you are not in the wrong. I know you are a grateful and loyal person. You didn't take a single thing prepared for the wedding. and you even refused the transfer order. Child, in doing all this, have you thought about yourself? Uncle, you've already changed my whole life, Heather replied. The care you've given me is already too much. I can't keep accepting more. Yes, she had let go of Uncle Sterling's protection, but at the same time, she had also shaken off all the humiliation, the failed husband from her past life, and that rotten, decaying marriage. Chloe could take away all the comforts that Carter brought. She could snatch the title of the Sterling family's daughter-in-law, the status, and the luxurious life. But Heather was still Heather. She still had a whole new life waiting for her ahead. She had never forgotten the days of the past. Every day, every hour had been a nightmare. She didn't want to live in that nightmare forever. If she kept getting tangled up with them, she would only continue to sink deeper into the same old tragedy. Aunt Sterling suddenly spoke up. Heather, let us help you one more time. Just consider it as you helping us. Afraid that Heather would refuse, she added, otherwise how will your uncle explain this to your father in the future? Heather still refused. I appreciate both of your intentions. My father dedicated his entire life to protecting the country. As his daughter, I can't live just to get married, have children, and lock myself in the kitchen for the rest of my life. Life is very short. I want to live a meaningful life, truly as myself, as Heather. Aunt Sterling looked at her in astonishment. In her past life, she actually hadn't liked Heather. It could even be said that many of Carter's biased views about her were reflections of his mother's opinions. But now, compared to the scandal-ridden Chloe, Heather, the orphan daughter-in-law who hadn't been very favored, had become the best choice, and Heather had rejected it. Uncle Sterling said calmly, I can see your ambition. It's Carter who isn't worthy of you. When Heather left and closed the door behind her, she clearly heard the usually calm voice of Aunt Sterling speaking hurriedly. Why did you let her go? What about Carter? Are you really going to let him marry a loose woman? Didn't you used to say that the only reason Heather wasn't greedy was because she didn't dare to be? Well, great. Now your son has brought home someone who is both greedy and daring. Are you satisfied now? If you people had understood me even a little bit, the Sterling family wouldn't have become such a laughingstock. Heather understood Uncle Sterling's inner turmoil well. The entire Sterling family, after over 20 years of upbringing, still couldn't raise a decent son. They just wanted to find a gentle, principled daughter-in-law to keep their son in check. As for whether she and Carter loved each other, or whether they were happy, that was entirely outside their scope of concern. The only thing that mattered was whether Heather could control Carter, ensuring he didn't go astray and didn't make the Sterling family a laughingstock. But she no longer owed them anything. Chloe sat in a daze in the front row of the wedding hall. The guests who had come for the ceremony had dispersed a long time ago. Today, not only did Carter's parents not show up, but even Chloe, as the bride, wasn't allowed to step onto the stage. Her and Carter's marriage license application had been put on hold. The reason given was that changing the bride's information twice in such a short time required the authorities to conduct a thorough verification. Without needing to ask, she knew for sure this was a direct order from the Sterling family. The imagined scene where a defeated Heather sat in the audience with eyes full of jealousy and regret never happened. The glorious, radiant moment Chloe had always dreamed of wasn't real either. She wasn't even allowed to attend the celebratory banquet hosted by the factory for the newlyweds. Because right now, she didn't even have the status of a temp worker anymore. Carter sat beside her, chain-smoking cigarette after cigarette as he watched the sky gradually turn dark. Chloe, you should go back first. Chloe nearly broke down, screaming. Go back? Where else am I supposed to go back to? Didn't you say we were getting married? Now the new house is gone, and I have to go back to live with my stepdad. Why does Heather get everything while I have to be just like before, clinging to you with no title and no status? Carter irritably crushed out the cigarette in his hand. Are you fucking blaming me? Do you know that the day you pulled that stunt to frame Heather, my dad saw everything from the window of the director's office? What's done was done, and my dad would have forced me to take responsibility for you anyway. It was you who refused to let Heather off the hook. Chloe, I seriously doubt whether you actually like me, or if you're just so jealous of Heather that you have to snatch away everything she has. Chloe glared at Carter with hatred. I gave you everything, and yet you suspect me? Carter finally saw through the greed and envy inside Chloe, his heart turning ice cold. I thank you for giving me everything, but now, it's not just you. Even I can't turn back anymore. Why did I give up? Give up Heather for you? The moment that thought flashed through his mind, Carter himself couldn't believe he had actually had that thought. Uncle Sterling had once said that if it was a love where they dared to defy the whole world to be together, then they would certainly be able to endure the plight of a destitute married couple struggling on all fronts. Carter's old position at his unit in New York was officially abolished, and he was completely transferred to Albany. His rank, his benefits, everything had to start over from zero. Considering that he was about to start a family, the factory temporarily assigned him a room in the basement as his dormitory. Compared to the bright new house on the upper floor he was previously allocated, his current living conditions had truly plummeted 10 levels. Until the moment they left Albany, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling never met Chloe even once, practically refusing to ever acknowledge her as their daughter-in-law. Many people in the factory were surprised, never expecting the Sterling family to be so utterly heartless toward their youngest son. The truth was, Uncle Sterling had 7 children. Carter was the youngest and had been the most spoiled since childhood. However, Carter's working ability and the way he treated others were extremely limited. Initially, Uncle Sterling sent him to Albany to build his character. Who would have expected that the moment he left his parents' embrace, his impulsive, lustful, and easily manipulated true nature would be so clearly exposed? Everyone in the factory knew exactly what kind of person Carter was, and even Uncle Sterling's reputation was dragged down with him. Heather naturally understood that what Uncle Sterling valued most was the family's honor. Therefore, right from the start, she had chosen to blow things up to the point where they were completely unsalvageable. But the thing that truly made Uncle Sterling wash his hands of the situation was Carter's own decision to proactively choose Chloe as the replacement bride. What Heather didn't expect was that Chloe had also been reborn. In her eyes, Chloe was a smooth talker who knew very well how to manipulate people's hearts, but at the same time, she was overly confident in herself. Heather wasn't sure when Chloe had died in their past life, but she knew clearly that Chloe had spent her entire life kept caged by Carter with money and a twisted kind of love. Having lived in the Sterling family for many years, Heather had often felt exhausted trying to navigate the relationships and the internal family politics. Let alone someone like Chloe, who spent her entire life caring only about Carter's feelings. When her vision was limited to just one person, all her thoughts and actions would become laughable and foolish. Regardless, this time, Heather respected their fate, just as she respected their illicit affair that had now been legalized into love. Autumn passed and winter came. Heather quickly found herself again, the person who used to shine in her position at work. In the year-end evaluations, she and Brenda tied for first place. However, when the factory selected the person to go to New York for advanced studies, Heather edged her out by a few overall points. She knew this victory wasn't entirely fair. After all, she had lived an entire lifetime, so she only needed a little review to master the old knowledge. Brenda reluctantly shook her hand. "Since you get to go to New York, hurry up and go. Don't let me see you, it'll just make me mad." On her last day before leaving, the women in her group threw her a farewell party. Lauren choked up several times. "Heather, make sure you eat well and sleep well. You have to live a good life from now on." But the one who cried the loudest was Brenda, who was completely drunk. "Heather, once you're gone, what motivation will I have left to fight for first place? Boo-hoo." That night, taking the opportunity, they poured their hearts out to each other. Girls shouldn't only compete with one another. They could also admire, encourage, and move forward together. The next morning, when Heather grabbed her luggage and opened the door, all the women from her group were already standing at the courtyard gate. Like a bright garden of sunflowers, they bloomed with radiant smiles to see her off. They walked with her, stopping every now and then, seeing her off step by step, until they finally escorted her all the way to the bus stop right outside the factory gates. At that moment, Carter rode his bicycle back, carrying Chloe on the back seat. Today was the exact day the two of them had finally completed their marriage registration. Carter stopped his bike. His face didn't look good as he stared at Heather amidst the crowd. "Heather, dragging this whole crowd along like this? Are you planning to crash our wedding?" The women burst out laughing. Carter's face flushed bright red. "Then what are you all trying to do?" Chloe happily rested her head on his shoulder, looking smug. "Today is my and Carter's big day. I invite everyone to have some wedding candy." But no one bothered to reach out and take any. Lauren spoke up, driving them away. "You two, just leave. We don't welcome you here." Brenda was equally cold. "Today is a good day. Don't bring your bad luck here. Hurry back to your basement." Chloe was about to argue back, but Carter stopped her. He stroked her hair while narrowing his eyes, looking at Heather with a meaningful gaze. It was as if he was thinking that she definitely couldn't let him go, that she would forever hate Chloe, and eventually return to being the pathetic girl revolving around him, staying weak, shallow, and blind, just like before. He had never truly seen through to who she really was. Right at that moment, the bus arrived at the stop. The women in the group worked together to load Heather's luggage onto the back of the bus. Carter's expression instantly changed. "Heather, where are you going?" She didn't answer, just grabbed her bag and stepped onto the bus. Carter immediately threw his bicycle down and took long strides toward her. "Heather, tell me clearly right now, where are you going?" Chloe glared at Heather and hurriedly pulled Carter's arm back. "We're married now. Heather doesn't have a place in the factory anymore. If she wants to leave, just let her go. Why are you trying to stop her?" Carter ignored her completely and forcefully pushed Chloe to the ground. He used all his strength to tightly grip Heather's wrist as if afraid she would disappear. "Heather, you're an orphan. Where else can you go besides the Sterling family? Even though I'm married, I never forced you to leave." Heather was truly disgusted by Carter's shamelessness. "Carter, don't compare me to a shameless person like you. When I was still engaged to you, you were sneaking around with Chloe. Now that you're married, you still want to control whether I stay or leave?" Carter still stubbornly refused to let go. He stared at her intently, as if trying to find any lingering affection she might still have for him. But in her eyes, there was only contempt and disgust. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She launched a straight kick right into his stomach. Carter had barely let out a cry of pain when he was immediately flanked and restrained by Brandon, who was wearing his police uniform, and the factory security guard, pinning him down right on the spot. Heather didn't hesitate at all and stepped straight onto the bus. Behind her, Carter's frantic screams echoed out. "Heather, tell me clearly. You stopped putting on an act and wrote that report because you still love me, didn't you?" Before he could finish his sentence, Chloe delivered a stinging slap across his face. "Carter, look clearly. The person who married you today is me. Didn't you say that Heather was just a fake wife forced on you from the countryside by your dad, and that she disgusted you? What's going on? Is this desperate, infatuated look you have right now a slap in my face?" All the women in the group were stunned. It truly was an endless, eye-opening experience. The bus engine roared to life and began to depart. Heather could still hear Carter's voice faintly calling out from behind. "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" He was apologizing to the Mrs. Sterling of the previous life, the woman who had endured and been betrayed her entire life, not to the Heather of this life, who had learned to let go and move on. Heather could not accept that apology on behalf of the Heather from the past life. From today onward, no matter how much Carter regretted it, just the fact that he dared to cause such a scene on the very day they registered their marriage was something Chloe would never be able to swallow. In this life, Carter had lost the protection of his family. And as for his and Chloe's love, caught amidst the gossip and the trivial struggles of daily life, how long could it possibly survive? Heather watched the scenery receding outside the window, feeling a sense of relief she had never experienced before. In this life, there were still countless new things, challenges, and surprises waiting for her ahead.
The best revenge is just walking away and leveling up. Know your worth and never be a doormat. What did you think of her move? Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and see you next time.